Hey Isaac, I guess just what led you to the Colts? What was it about the fit, everything that worked out to get you to the Colts?
Yeah. So you know, in free agency, you have options and you kind of have to weigh, what fits best with you, both your personality with that organization, who you are as a player, opportunity as a player, all these things. And I just felt like the Colts was kind of the best situation for me. It's so weird because you almost feel like you're back in college, right? Because you have quote unquote offers, and then you have to choose what your best fit is. And in the same way, that's kind of what I had to do. But it just made a lot of sense. I mean, just with the scheme, kind of with the opportunity for me to be able to come in and compete and play, it just checked a lot of boxes. So super excited about it. And it's just random. Apparently all roads do lead to Indiana. So I'm right back in Indiana, kind of where I started. But, I'm super fired up about this opportunity.
JJ?
To you again too, Isaac. Been a while, I guess, since I wanted to ask you about was there ever a time at Notre Dame when maybe you were in practice and you're running a stunt inside and you ran into Quentin Nelson, and anything that stood out about any of those moments if you had them?
No doubt. I used to go against Q all the time. It was always funny when I was my senior year and I'm going through this kind of this transitional process where I know I'm going to go to the NFL. We have scouts at practice. I used to intentionally go against Q because I knew people loved Q, and I'm like, I want to go against Q then. So back at Notre Dame, I used to love competing against him. Knew back then, even when he was young, that he was going to be a great player. But I'm super excited to compete against him again. I mean, the dude is great. So yeah, to answer your question, I used to go against Q all the time back in Notre Dame.
Stephen Holder?
Isaac, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm wondering how much you've been able to learn about the scheme so far in Indy, and if you know anything about it, how do you think you fit, and how's your skill set kind of work with that, mesh with that, I guess?
Yeah, so I haven't done this crazy deep dive into the defense. But when you talk about 4-3 defenses, playing a true end, going against tight ends, lining up on tight ends, and lining up on the edge against these tackles, the idea that I'm going to need to be running to the ball, be in great shape, all those things considered, I think I'm a great fit, right? And I think I'm so fortunate to be in a 4-3 defense because I think it really fits who I am as an end. And I think the cool thing is in this defense, I'm just going to have a lot of opportunity to showcase what I do. I mean, I'm super excited about it. But like I said, I haven't done a crazy deep dive into it. Just had some conversations with Coach Baker, the D-line coach. And, and talking to him, it just seems like it's the perfect fit.
Jim Maiello?
Yeah, Isaac, I guess I was just going to ask you to expand on that, just to see if what do they kind of tell you about your role, and other guys that maybe from the last couple of years when you do your deep dive, they say, hey, watch this guy because that's kind of what you'll be doing.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just kind of getting an idea of at this point, what are they requiring out of their ends? And again, I've talked to Coach Bake about it. Just some of the standards and expectations for the ends, how they play. There's a lot of carryover though. I was in a 4-3 last year, and I have been in my 4 years with the Chargers as a 4-3. So tons of carryover. We always want to dominate tight ends. We want to obviously, rush the passer. We want to set edges to the defense, do all that stuff. A lot of carryover though. And then just as far as my role, it's a good question, but in my mind, because of how I approach this, being now going into my 5th season, you got to compete no matter what. I mean, if they said, hey, you're going to start immediately, or they said you're going to be a 4th-string player, it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to come in and absolutely compete. So that's what I'm most excited about. I know I will have the opportunity to compete against other guys, and that gets me fired up. But, I don't want to say who cares, but in my mind, I'm just like, man, you got to get to work either way. So just excited about competing.
Olivia Ray?
Hey, Isaac, I know you say you went against Quentin in practice at Notre Dame, but did he reach out to you when he found out you were coming home to Indy? And how good does it feel to be back in Indiana, the Hoosier State?
Coming home to Indiana. That's funny. Yeah, no, we've chatted a little bit. A lot of it is like, where do you live? You know, kind of like more of like you're a teammate and a friend, less about football and more about like, man, I need your help kind of getting set up in Indiana, knowing what the deal is. But super excited about coming back to the quote unquote Hoosier State. I think this is Irish country through and through, but we'll say it's the Hoosier State. But yeah, I'm excited. And like I said, it's just crazy that I'm coming back. After living in California for 4 years, definitely got a little spoiled, but you know, I love the Midwest. I love Indiana, and I'm excited to be back.
Kevin Bone.
Hey, Isaac, congrats. I've got two. The first one is you've talked a lot about end. Did you ever slide inside on pass rush downs with the Chargers?
Yeah, definitely. You know, that's a big thing just in the NFL period, just adding value. I think it was something I was able to do in my first few years of my NFL career, just playing all over the place. I mean, I did it at Notre Dame too, just played all over the place and got the opportunity to create a lot of versatility. So I'd expect kind of the same thing here, you know, first and second down. I'm an end. And I think always on third down, given what I've done and what I can do, there's always a chance for me to get bumped inside. So, you know, there's a lot of options there, which I'm excited about.
And then going back to an earlier question you answered about fit and you threw out culture. I guess when you're halfway across the country, how much do you know about the Colts culture and how did you kind of get introduced to that?
Well, the guys that I know that have played for the Colts, obviously Quentin, Phil Rivers, absolute legend, Matthias Farley, guys like that, you know, they mention the culture, right? Like when I talk to Q, first thing he says is, you're going to love the locker room. You're going to love the guys. And then Matthias, kind of the same thing. Even though he's with the Jets now, you know, same types of conversation. So I'm just assuming there's a culture that I'll mess with. When I talk to Chris Ballard and other people in the building, you know, he's radiating what the culture is, right? Like you talk to him and you're like, I have a clear picture of what this thing's going to be like. And I love it. So, you know, my assumption is that I'm going to get in the locker room, meet the guys, meet all the coaches, meet all the support staff, and I'm going to fall in love with the environment.
Joel Erickson.
Isaac, you mentioned playing in a pure 4-3. What did you guys do when you were with the Chargers? How would you describe those schemes? I think it changed a little bit while you were there.
Yeah, so we kind of went, you know, back and forth between an over and under defense. A lot of 4-3 concepts. At times we'd sprinkle in some 3-4 concepts. But we were primarily kind of that 4-3. So again, a lot of carryover. I do think that some of the things we did with the Chargers, and when I say things, I'm referring to kind of those, you know, sprinkling in those 3-4 things. You know, it just kind of like expanded the Rolodex. Like it just like made me a better player and gave me some different experience. Being head up on a tackle and having a, you know, almost two gap in a sense, and play a little old school football. But we were playing on the edge a lot. We're going against tight ends. So again, a lot of carryover. But you're exactly right. That defense that we played in was really dynamic. We were doing a lot of different things.
Zach Kiefer.
Isaac, I think this is a little redundant, so I apologize, but are you walking in with the idea that there's a starting spot available at end? Like, what did they tell you? Obviously, you're going to come in and compete and try to earn that spot, but what's your kind of assumption at where they're at the position? Because there's a lot of question marks.
For sure. I mean, if you don't walk into any room, in any situation, knowing you're going to compete and expecting to play a lot, then you're kidding yourself, right? Like this is not a league where you can just come in casual and expect to be a backup, right? So I'm going in with that mindset. As far as my role and what they've said, again, it is you are going to compete. What does that look like when we have our first game? I don't know who we play first. I think it's the Cardinals, or whoever it is. Doesn't really matter. Like from now until then, there's a lot that has to happen, right? and I want to play. And that's my assumption. I think I'm a great player. I think I have a great opportunity to do some really cool things in this next year to make the whole Colts organization and Colts fans and everybody super excited that I'm there. But again, it's just like it's a competition situation. I think Zach, maybe to answer your question, I think the ball is in my court though, right? Like it's on me to do what I need to do to be in the position that I want to be in. That may be a little vague, right? But I think you understand what I'm trying to say. I have an opportunity to compete.
No, totally. Thanks for your candor.
We'll do last question, JJ.
Isaac, what do you know about some of the teammates who you're joining? You talk a lot about the culture and how much, what's going on in the locker room, but, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart and Darius Leonard and some of the names who I'm sure you took notice of out in LA.
Yeah, those guys are beasts. I had a very quick Instagram DM conversation with DeForest. But, I'm just excited to come out and work with these dudes. I mean, DeForest is an unbelievable player. He has great skill sets, and I'm just excited and antsy to get out and get to work with those guys. But you mentioned other names. This team is stacked with great players. And I think what the organization has done really, really well, and this, speed of the leader, speed of the pack, this starts with Chris Ballard, is he set a standard for, nutrition, for how you need to take care of your body, like kind of all these other things outside of just learning a scheme, right? Because that's the easy part. You can go find a guy standing outside the 7-Eleven who can learn a scheme. It's everything else that makes teams great. So you got great players and you've got great leadership, and you see the results of that. But I think that's what I'm most excited about, is to kind of get in the building and start working with these guys. I met Rusty. You talk to Rusty, he's the guy who handles kind of like, I don't even know exactly what his title is, but the guy's a legend. I just met him and I already know he's a legend. Take guys like that, working with elite athletes, like all the guys you mentioned, JJ, you got a real chance to be great. So I'm just so excited, but you're exactly right. A lot of great players. So there's a lot of cool opportunities.